While I'm keeping an eye on every player, Wiser controls every room.
Rob, fresh off Newcastle, let's just reflect on that game first and foremost. It was a good win, a hard win, but there was bits and pieces you said after that you wanted to maybe look at and work on this week. Where are we?
Yeah, it was funny, wasn't it? Because it is funny because obviously people contact me or people talk to me about it, and you see the kind of reports that have been written, and you would think that it was like incredible that Newcastle weren't awarded the win almost, with the comments and from what obviously Dean said afterwards. And obviously I get it. Dean was upset to lose a close game, but there is a reality, that what we had this season. I mean, we were 14 men for a fair bit of the game at Harlequins, and anyone who watched the game and watched BT can clearly see the last penalty. His hands to floor and it goes against us, and it's a penalty in front of the post, and we probably win the game. If you want to go mad about one thing or one decision or one whatever in any close game, you can do that. I mean, we actually lost to Newcastle here in a really close game. I can point to 5 or 6 decisions in there, 22, that could be penalties to us. We kick a penalty, we win the game. And I think that's probably distracted from the fact that overall, and yes, I know our line out stuttered, and yes, I know we missed some opportunities to get the ball in space, particularly 3 or 4 times in the second half. The ball was crying out to be moved into space where they were lacking in with some defensive width, and I know we missed out on them, and that's some of the decision making that I'd say we wanted to get on top of. But at the end of the day, Newcastle were in our 22 in the whole game 3 times, and one of them is a run through because the guy's got an interception. You don't lose many games like that. And if someone said to me, could we go the rest of the season and every game the opposition win our 22 3 times, I'd take that now, because we'd probably win all those games. And I think those are the nuts and bolts of our game that are standing up pretty well. And we're doing that with some other challenges going on. It was a long old trip up. We bussed up, we didn't fly. It was a Sunday in probably the worst conditions we played in this season when you look at the wind and rain, which did clear up a little bit later, and we probably didn't take advantage of that. The flip of that, did we convert the pressure? No. Would we want to? Yes. But did we create enough pressure to win the game? Yes. Did we stop Newcastle being in our 22 and being much of a threat? Yes. Well, those two things tend to, they tend to mean that you win more games than you lose, and we've won a tight game, and we're pleased with the points, and it means we can move on.
Had you won against Wasps, it would have been a fantastic block of fixtures. You now have a new block of 4 to start with, and Northampton this weekend. What can we expect up there?
It's difficult to say. They're kind of in and around where we are on their levels of kind of consistency a bit, aren't they? They've had some really good wins where things have stuck and they've looked a very good rugby side, and then they've had some performances where they'll be disappointed with their level of performance. It's very much like us. And I think that's why it's such an important game. We're around the same position in the table. Not just do both teams want to gain points to move up the league, but we both want to stop each other getting points as well. And that's what probably makes it a really interesting fixture. I think there's a lot of challenges for us. But the one thing that I'm feeling pretty good about with the group of guys we've got is they seem to really enjoy challenges. And this is a challenge, and that's what I want us to do. I want us to roll up our sleeves and enjoy it. And if I see a good players rolling up their sleeves and enjoying it, then we'll be doing well in the game.
Whatever the outcome of this season, there's always a pressure with what at the start of the year of where you end up. But you'll take from this season a huge amount, I imagine. A group of youngsters in particular have come through and shone in the big stage, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I think what you're seeing that this is the thing, is game time in good environments will improve a player. It's very difficult to go backwards as a player playing in a good environment against good opposition, because you're gaining so much. As long as you can take into the game an attitude that you're going to take a full part in the game, that you're going to express yourself, you're not going to hide away, you will become a better player. It's the final part of making a player a good player. Yes, there's the training. Yes, there's all the prep. There's the loan club games. Some academy, however you want to talk about it. But ultimately, what we've always driven here, and this is from our first days in the Premiership, and you remember me talking about it, when we first put a team into our first Premiership game, the last instruction we gave them, and we drove all season, was, get involved in the game, have your hands on the ball as many times as possible. Our mantra back then was, if we had the ball, we were going to keep it. it's still a fair chunk of our mantra now. But we probably pick the areas of the pitch where we want that to happen. And the biggest attribute for that, when you talk about young players, is if you keep the ball, you're getting lots of touches, you're getting lots of passes, you're having to win lots of breakdowns, you're getting ball carries. You're actually challenging yourself by keeping the ball on the pitch to keep doing things. Yes, you have to then suddenly become a defender. The ball's live. You have to move, and that is the quickest way to develop. Lots of ball in play time is the quickest way to develop. And what we're seeing with our young lads is they're well prepared, yes, but actually they are getting multiple impacts in the game, and that will improve you. That gains you an experience. It gains you a level of confidence that can only improve you in good environments. And we're seeing that, and that doesn't surprise me. The problem we've got now is our environment isn't like it was in our first 4 or 5 years in the Premiership, where it was about initially survival, then about climbing the league. So actually you looked at every game as just a pure development opportunity, really. Now, yes, we want these players to develop, but there's an expectation on us to be in and around the top 4. And that creates that little bit of added pressure, which will help those players develop, as well, because there's a different layer of pressure there. But at the same time, we've not got to get carried away and have an over expectation it's all going to happen at once. It just means tries are going to flow and the scoreboard's just going to tick over and other teams aren't going to challenge us, because the two don't really align.
Do you think, when you talk about that pressure and the challenge, that the guys will thrive off that, and it's a different challenge that perhaps they've never faced before, because you are in that position? You've normally been around the top 4, certainly top 2 in certainly the last 4 or 5 years. Are they thriving on that? Is there an extra pressure on you, on them? I
wouldn't say it's an extra. Well, probably there's a little bit of an extra pressure on me, but as I say, that's based on expectation that we've been up and around the top end of the league, and that's what it's about. If you put your marker out to be a team that wins trophies, there's pressure when you're not even in and around in the top 4 for obvious reasons. But the one thing it does do, it makes you enjoy the wins. It was great to stand in the changing room last week winning. And that's what it feels like. It was great. It was great after the Gloucester game to celebrate that win for what it was. And for the last 2 or 3 years, we've probably been at a stage of the season now where, and we've talked about it as coaches. You would sit in the Sandy Park office after a game against a team that we were probably expected to win. We've knocked off the win. If we hadn't won it well, it would be a bit disappointing, be a bit frustrated. And we'd go home and just start preparing for the next game without really stopping and marking that game and enjoying it. And I think those are the things. We've talked a lot since Christmas about enjoying every week for what it is. And as I say, lots of people talk about enjoying the journey. But, if we were to, you imagine if we were to end up winning the Premiership this year, it would in a lot of ways be the most satisfying out of all of them. Because it's probably the one where everyone's going, oh, they're not as good as they've been before, and they're not going to do it, and this is it, they're not in the top 4, they're not being as dominant, or all the kind of things that people used to say before. It would be the most enjoyable, because we would literally be scrapping till the last week of the season. There wouldn't be any week where we're able to rotate the team or take a week off or plan or plot. It would just be, we're going flat out, guys, and we're going to scrap for every point. And if you scrap for every point, it can take you into really good form at the end of the season, which is what you probably saw with Harlequins. Harlequins literally had to scrap. I think there was 1 week where they rotated just before the end when they kind of accepted they were going to be 4th, I think. But other than that, it was scrapped to the death all the way through. They had to do it again in the semi-final, and they had to do it again against us. And the truth is, they were the best prepared team to do that, and that's why they came through.
Team news-wise, how are you looking?
All right, and that's about all I can say, really. We've got some additional challenges around the back 5 of the scrum.
You've had that all year.
But we've had it all year. So, some of our lads are getting used to running in positions they've never run in before. But again, that can be a benefit to you. I think the challenge for us is not what people think it is. The challenge for us is not our internationals players being away. It's actually that then we've got layers of injuries of guys who we'd expect to fill in. So having guys like Sean Lonsdale and Will Whitty, Rushi Tamua, those guys unavailable, that's what's really created that pressure and that stress around the back 5 of the scrum. Because with those guys available, you've got a little bit of rotation, you've got a little bit of chance to deal with other things. So when a Dave Ewers isn't available, you can cope with it. When a Don Armour's not available, you can cope with it. When a Jackson Bermuda's not available, you can cope with it. But when both players start to get injured, that's what's challenged us. It's not any problem with the internationals being away. You have an expectation of that, but it's tough when your backups get injured to your backups. So you kind of, and it's a shame for them, because how great would these games of rugby be for those guys? To be playing in on a regular basis. These would be really huge development games for them. that's unfortunate. But then it does. You look how Richard Capps has played the last couple of weeks. I think he's probably. I thought he was one of our standout performances last week. And again, it's been missed. It's been missed in the furore of the game, which is a shame, because people should be talking about what a good game he had. Pat Schickling, another very good game from him. That's got lost a little bit. These things. Marcus Street, despite I think there was one scrum where he may have been a bit lucky, but we dominated 2 or 3 other scrums. We pushed them off their own ball to win a penalty that we kick. Well, Marcus Street was in that scrum, and he wasn't going to ground, and he wasn't going backwards. He was going forwards at a rate of knots. No one's talked about that. Do you know what I mean? They're talking about a different one. And these are things where there's a lot of good stuff in there as well. There's a lot of positives, and those things are coming well for us, and we've got to just keep driving them.